All right, it's 11 o'clock here in sunny Tucson, Arizona. My name is Phil Thompson. I'm the Executive Director of StreamingChurch TV. It's good to be with you here today. And if you're watching us live, feel free to ask us questions through the chat platform. Or, of course, if you're watching this a little bit later on our archive, you can still contact us at support@streamingchurch.tv. Well, we have a very special guest today, and a good friend of mine who I work with here at Alive Church. Her name is Sharon Iuliano. Sharon, thank you for being with us today.
Thank you.
And Sharon, the reason we've got you on here is because you didn't really want to be on here, so we just decided we're going to get you on here even though we have nothing to talk about. No, I'm just teasing. We have a lot to talk about because you have a position here that is called Weekend Experience Director. And for some churches, that might be a little bit unusual, or you might have a question regarding that. Well, what's a Weekend Experience Director? Why do you need a Weekend Experience Director at your church? Why do you guys have one? And so really what I want to talk to you about today, because we talk about streaming here, but this is related to streaming. This is related to broadcasting your services online. And it's not just related to that. It's related to what you do on the weekends. So Sharon, tell us a little bit about, Weekend Experience Director. What is that fancy title? What does it mean?
Well, it's best to have one person in charge of kind of everything to do with the whole service. One person that knows, a little bit about the sound, a little bit about the lights, the cameras, who's speaking when, the songs, the band, everything about it. Overall director, much like a stage director of a play. Not so much that you want to be like a play or anything, but just so that you're aware of what's going on and you can make the best experience for everybody that's coming in.
Absolutely. Okay, so we're. You touched on something experience, and some people might be watching and going, well, we're doing church, and it's all about God showing up and people's lives being changed, and that's very true. But if you're really trying to reach people besides just the normal crowd that you have, nothing wrong with the normal crowd. You want people coming, you want your regular people, but are you trying to reach people that don't go to church? And if you're trying to reach people that don't go to church, or maybe have had bad experiences with church in the past, the idea behind it is you want to try to create a pleasant experience. So when somebody walks in your church door, they're going to enjoy the service. They're going to get something out of it. You're taking away, I guess I would say, obstacles that sometimes we put in people's ways for hearing the gospel or hearing a message that could change their life. So part of your job is to help things flow and remove some obstacles that could prevent people from really receiving the whole message.
Right. You want to create a distraction-free environment as much as possible. So, there's not a blank screen where people are just looking at a blank screen. You always want something going on. You always want some sound going on. You always want something going on. You don't want any surprises. You want people prepared. And it just makes for better service.
Now, when we talk about that experience, okay, so let's get into some of the nuts and bolts here, okay? So you're the Weekend Experience, and by the way, you do a lot of things here at Alive Church. I mean, you work a lot with our communications here, which is what you, I guess, essentially were hired to do. But you also did this Weekend Experience at another church in the Tucson area, and I found out about that, I think, about a year ago, and so we finally got you in this position, which I think is exciting and great. So let's go over what exactly are you doing. So the Weekend Experience. Here at our church, Alive Church, we have actually 3 services usually on the weekend, Saturday night and a couple Sunday morning. So what's the first thing on your list, okay, when you walk in Saturday afternoon? What's your first thing to do here?
Well, I would actually back it up and say before the weekend, I would be prepared, knowing actually 3 weeks out what we're going to talk about. The idea if we're doing baptisms, if it's a communion service, if like last weekend, for instance, we did baby dedication. So that impacts the whole service and your timing of the service. And
timing is a very important
thing. It is very important. It's important that people know what to expect. If you start at 9 and you're done at 10, then you should be done at 10. if that's what you're telling people.
That's a little foreign to some churches.
Yeah.
But you think that's very important.
It is. I think especially for people that aren't used to going to church or new to church, that they know what to expect, that there aren't, people really don't like surprises, and then, they don't want to be don't want to feel uncomfortable.
Right. Well, and I think you touched on something there, because we, if you've gone to the same church for a number of years, there tends to be, you're attending, you tend to tolerate a lot of things. You tend to tolerate, whatever, Sally that sings off key. You tolerate that because you love Sally, and she's a sweet lady. And by the way, Sally, if you're listening, we're not talking about you. I just pulled that name. It's a fictitious name that I'm using here. But, if somebody can't seem to, if your sound people who you know and love very well can't seem to turn the mic on at the right time, or are constantly dealing with sound issues that are just always the problem, many times you tolerate that if you go to the church because you love the pastor, you love the people, and that's awesome. But if you're a newer person and you're thinking, what's this God thing all about? I wonder if Jesus is really who he says he is. I wonder, and so you go to a church for the first time and you see just a ton of mistakes. That could chase you away, right?
It could, and it's mostly the mistakes are due to just a lack of preparedness. I mean, just people don't think about it ahead of time and prepare and say, okay, I know the pastor's going to speak after the video, so the video sound needs to go down and the pastor's mic needs to go up. The pastor shouldn't have to say, am I on? Am I on? Can you hear me? It should be on. And that's just a matter of my role as a service director of maybe cueing the sound guy,
okay,
letting them know the pastor's coming up,
right.
Stand by.
Yeah.
Just going through the service ahead of time so we know the flow of the service. We know that there's 4 songs. After the song, there's a video, and then the pastor's going to come up and give the sermon.
Okay. So, all right. So take me back through the process. And you mentioned something very important, and that is, you're planning this during the week. You have an idea what's going to happen during the week. Like you said, baby dedications or baptisms or something's going on. So you are planning ahead of time with the timing and everything during the week. So walk me through that process again.
Well, if I know I have 60 minutes, I have a 60-minute service. I know the pastor needs to speak 30 minutes. Everything is broken down from there. If I have a band or musicians leading worship, they're given 20 minutes. They can maybe do 4 songs in that 20 minutes, sometimes 3 songs, and take their time with them. We know how long our videos are. We think about it ahead of time, prepare. We know we have a 3-minute video.
And when you're saying videos, and I just want to bring this up because we're pretty video heavy here at Alive Church. And what I mean by that is we run videos before the message starts, in the middle of the message sometimes, to illustrate a point that our senior pastor is trying to make. And usually at the end we run a video. So we're pretty video heavy. Not every church does that. But again, if you're going to put something in your service, whether it's a special or communion, you got to figure that out and time that out. So
yes, and especially if you have multiple campus, you need a place where the other campuses can join you live. So if you have a video transition, that gives them time to get streaming in live with before your pastor starts talking, and it just gives you kind of a little bumper time before, so that people aren't really missing out on anything that the pastor says.
Okay. All right. So you're checking throughout the week. You've got an idea what's all planned out. Okay. Here's what we're going to do Sunday morning. And again, you may be watching us right now and saying, well, my church doesn't do that. We have 2-hour-long services, and we do this and that. You can modify what we're saying here. You can adjust what we're saying. What I want you to get today is the spirit of what we're talking about here, is having somebody that either maybe just a volunteer, but a volunteer that's capable of saying, okay, I'm going to really help us create a good experience for people on the weekends. So you're trying to create a good experience for people, and you're with us here at Alive Church. You've got a lot of different factors mixed in, and maybe more, maybe less, depending on your church. But for us, we've got several factors that are thrown in here. So you've checked everything out. It's Saturday afternoon. The videos are loaded already. The song lyrics are in what are we using? Song Show Plus? Is that what we use? I don't even remember what we use. Okay, so everything's set up to go, and the service is going to start pretty soon. Take us through that process.
Well, we have a pre-service meeting with all of the people involved with the service. It may be the sound tech, the video, the person that's running the lyrics that show on the screen,
right.
Anybody that's speaking, the person doing announcements, the pastor, and we all get together and we go through the flow of the service, starting with the pre-service, if there is a pre-service song. Just so our timing and who's doing what, and any questions are answered at that time. And for the service, we pray for this, and then we go out and run the service.
Okay, tell me a little bit about the pre-service meeting, because you mentioned that, and that's pretty important. No matter what you're doing, you want to gather some people together, some key people that are involved in the service. Mm-hmm. So you gather them together, and what are you going over with? What do you?
Well, we start at the beginning of the service and just walk our way through it. And if the pastor has any illustration, if there's a special camera shot we need, if somebody, other than the worship leader is singing at that point, we instruct the camera, whoever's running cameras, to make sure that they get that person on camera.
Zoom in or get a shot of that person.
Yes, make sure that person's included in the shot.
And by the way, I don't mean to interrupt, but you're bringing up some real good points. For instance, the pastor has an illustration. Maybe the pastor has an illustration on stage, on the platform here. And it could be anything. I don't know. It could be, what has Jeff used before? A can of Diet Coke or something. That's what he's famous for, drinking Diet Coke. So you want to make sure the camera people know, okay, Jeff's going to talk about this can of Diet Coke. Silly illustration. I'm just using it. So you want to make sure that camera person's zooming in on that.
Yes.
Because if he's trying to give you an illustration about something on a platform and you just have a wide shot, it's not going to do anybody any good that's watching it streaming-wise.
That's right. It's important that whatever the person is talking about, that the camera operator understands, that is the object that needs to be in the center of the shot.
A good idea when it's coming up, anyhow.
Yes.
All right. So you're going through before the service. You're going through all these little details, and then you pray at the end, and you kind of let people loose. What happens next? So the service starts. Let's take it now. Okay, it's what time's their service start Sunday morning? 9:30 Sunday morning. The service is starting. What's going on with you right now?
Well, I sit in the back by the sound booth, and I have a headset, and I am able to talk to the person running the lyrics. I'm able to talk with. I'm next to the sound person, so I can talk to them, and we can make sure we're all communicating. The camera operator is on a headset, so they can communicate as well. So we can all be.
So you're all linked together.
On the same at the same place at the same time.
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
And
okay. Go ahead. So that's going on. Okay.
Yes. So that makes us able to communicate, and then we can follow through each cue. You can use a standby system and a go system. You can use a cue sheet before where you have everything queued. You can say standby Q1 go.
Okay, so cue sheet. So again, you've got something then, a sheet of paper that people have copies of.
Yes.
So they have an idea what's going on. So it's not in their head, okay, I think sometime about 10 minutes we're going to do this. It's already on the sheet.
It is on a sheet, and it's all timed out, so we know how long each cue should be, what the light should be at that cue, what the sound should be at that cue. What camera shot we should have, and it's all thought out ahead of time.
Okay. Now, you've got it all thought out ahead of time. What if something doesn't go as planned?
Well, that's where the headset comes in handy, where you can quickly troubleshoot. If there's something on the screen that's not right, I may see it before the person that's running the lyrics, and I can say, turn it, switch it, switch cameras, do something, and we can tell each other, help each other. If we hear something that maybe the sound guy's focusing on something else and doesn't hear another problem, we can draw their attention to.
So you're really another set of eyes, another set of ears on what's happening during the service.
Yeah, the feel, the flow, the look, the sound, everything regarding the service, just to make it the best service it can be.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so you're doing this here for a live church. You did it for another church. Tell me. Let me throw a curveball at you here, but tell me a little funny story maybe, or something that you're your worship experience director, and all of a sudden the wheels started to fall off something? Have you had that experience? I mean, we definitely have had issues here. I think every church is going to have them. I mean, things don't always go out as planned.
Yes, we've had a power outage, complete power outage.
Wow.
Wasn't just at the church; it was the whole neighborhood around the church.
Wow.
What do you do?
What do you do?
Yeah, well, especially if it's a large room, people can't hear. If you're streaming, nobody will hear. You're done. Yeah.
Right.
So. So basically, you have to dismiss the service if the power doesn't come right back up, and you just either you can have
if you're in a large auditorium.
Yeah, they can't hear.
Now, if that happened here, I mean, our auditorium is not that large here, so we could probably still do Jeff could still teach, or somebody could. I mean, you're not going to have your video equipment.
Yeah.
You're not going to have your lights.
Well,
and you're not going to have your AC. When it's 105 degrees outside, that could be a problem.
And, the lighting can be an issue. You can have safety concerns at that point where it's just safer to dismiss everyone.
Interesting. Gee, how in the world did these guys do this hundreds of years ago? I mean, how did they have church hundreds of years ago? That just doesn't, I don't understand. Did they actually have church hundreds of years ago?
I think that
What did Jesus do without videos, without cameras?
I think people probably paid attention a little bit more and didn't.
What kind of a sound system did he have? All right, so I'm being facetious here, but we're in the 21st century. We are in a generation that is tech savvy.
Yes.
I mean, and there's criticism on some groups that say, well, you shouldn't worry about the experience. We should just preach the word and not worry about all these other things. What do you say to something like that?
Well, I think that's why we have so many churches. There's a good fit for everyone. There's big churches, small churches. There's loud churches. There's places that don't use much technology at all, and that's there's a good fit for everyone.
Okay, so you would say, hey, if that's your feelings, just go to another church. Well, I mean, yeah, and I agree. I think you're right. I mean, there's lots of different churches out there, and different churches with different people.
Yeah, and I think it's important to know your mission and your goal of your church. If you are a technology-based church like a live church is, then it's important to keep up with technology. If, like, for instance, we do a virtual pastor question where people text in the answers, and the answers go up to a screen that the pastor sees during his talk, and then he can respond to the people. Things like that, where it's more interactive, perhaps more interaction during the week, prior to the service, after the service. That's just the world we live in now, and that's what we do here at a live church.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. Steve Lacey had a question here, who happens to be our president and what is your title here, CEO or whatever, big shot. Steve actually is running the cameras here, and we have literally just set up a couple quick cameras here to do this. We're not even using a live's cameras here for different reasons. But Steve's question is, okay, if my church doesn't have a Sharon, and I'm sorry if you don't, but if you don't have a Sharon, what are some things that other churches could do with limited help?
Well, as I mentioned before, I think it's preparation and planning, and of course there's always room for the Holy Spirit to work during worship. The pastor needs a little bit of freedom to be able to, but what we do is we plan it out the best we can ahead of time. We allow a little room for some planned spontaneity, and you just think about things ahead of time. And communicate with everybody that's on your team, even if it's 5 people. Just everybody knows what's going on.
Yeah, communication is very important. And again, if you're really trying to put together, and I hate to use the word presentation, but it's, you got people walking in your church, and now if you're a church and you don't have visitors coming and you don't want visitors coming, then obviously this isn't for you probably. But if you really do want to try to reach your community, and even if you're streaming with us, hopefully it's not just the community, but it's even the world. You want to put together something that's that's going to look reasonable to people. I was in broadcasting for a long time, radio, and one of the biggest fear, and I was manager for stations, I would be either in my office or going down the road listening to the radio, and then I would hear a song would run out, and then it would be nothing. It's the term we call dead air. And that was horrifying for me as a manager of a radio station, because what happens when you're listening to the radio or you're watching the TV and all of a sudden it just goes out? There's nothing there. And it's not your TV, it's not your radio, it's obviously the studio. What do you do when that happens?
Yeah, that's, people are going to tune out.
You tune out.
Yeah.
And it's the same way when you're streaming. If you don't have something going on, if you're just showing your audio goes out, or your microphone's not on, that should be on, or the camera's not on, or the camera is on and there's nobody on the platform. I mean, people are probably not going to hang around. Maybe old, faithful, reliable people will, because they know that's the way you do things, and they know sooner or later something will happen. But if you've got newer people that are logging on to your stream, they're going to be discouraged and go somewhere else.
Yeah, we here at Alive have a slideshow that when we do start streaming live, we play music in the background that's current music, and we play just a slideshow of upcoming events at the church, or more information for people, just something that's going on the screen. We don't ever want to show just an empty platform with nobody there. That's just like you said, they're just going to tune out.
Right. Okay. Question: what should I consider in the design of my service? In other words, how much video? If I'm thinking about, okay, you're watching this and you're saying, you know what, we really could probably run a video or two, or we could do some different things. So what would you suggest, Sharon? And by the way, I'm talking to Sharon Iuliano, who's our, if you just joined us, is our worship experience, weekend experience director. So Sharon, what would you suggest for a good kind of a format? How much video, how much music, how much teaching, visual tools? Would you want to just throw out some things?
Well, again, each weekend may vary. If you're going to be baptizing people, some churches have a specific Sunday that they'll baptize people. You may want to, a couple weekends before, a couple Sundays before, go ahead and run a baptism promotion video, maybe a testimonial video of somebody that had gotten baptized in the past and what it meant to them.
Now, when you say promotional videos, where can churches get those?
There's a lot of online resources. I'm particularly fond of sermonspice.com.
Sermonspice.com.
Yeah, they have a lot of really great videos. They have a lot of sermon illustrations. They have a lot of just background videos.
Is that free, or do you have to pay for that?
No, you pay for them. They're usually about $15 per video.
Okay. All right. Okay, so planning things out a little bit, depending on the service you have, maybe start off maybe just running one video, maybe?
Yeah, we try to keep the length of the video to a minimum, about 2 minutes, maybe 3 minutes for a testimonial, just because people tend to stop paying attention. That's important just for here at Alive, that we just keep the videos on the short side. But we also do a series in the summer that's called At the Movies, and we take video clips from movies, and our pastor talks about the video clips. So we play a bit of the pastor, and then we play a bit of the video clip. And there's also online resources for that from wingclips.com, I believe, ScreenView, and that covers the copyright. Now, we don't archive the videos because it's a regular movie that's played in the theater. We don't have the copyright for that, but it's a good way to have a summer experience, so our pastor can have a couple weeks off. We can record him ahead of time, but he's still here. He's still in here at the service.
Okay, good. Don had a question. Does having more tech cause more problems? Let me answer that, Don. Yes. Don is in Ohio, and he actually is one of our main web host guy who actually is in on the chat and welcomes people and greets people and answers questions, which we've talked about this before in other shows. You really should have a web host or a web pastor, somebody that's part of the chat and greeting people. That's what Don does with us. Don's in Ohio. Don, if you were here just 15 minutes before a service, things can just go crazy around here. So having technical stuff in your services, there is that potential for something to go wrong. and it does happen, and you can spend a lot of money on equipment, and it's still something goes wrong, Yes. So it just, we've learned to live with it here.
Yes.
So we're scrambling like crazy usually
Yeah.
if something goes out, and it could be anything from projectors to audio to the stream messed up to something's weird going on. We got a buzz in the sound system. It does happen. All right, so we're almost out of time here. Talking with Sharon here. Do you have any ideas, Sharon, on really, because you are paid to be the weekend experience director, but you have volunteers. What's ideas that motivate your volunteers? How can you motivate your volunteers to really keep them excited about what's happening?
I think it's important to communicate the vision. Why are we doing this? What's our purpose? Here at Alive, we believe we're here to lead people who are far from God to be followers of Jesus. When people are aware of it and they agree with it, that motivates them. They want to help. They want to be a part of it. If we keep it fun, we enjoy each other's company, we laugh. We spend time outside of church, just getting to know each other a little bit better, building
How come
community.
I'm never invited to any of those functions? I don't understand that. Do you guys actually get together once in a while? I'm just kidding. Okay, go ahead.
But I think that is important to build a community in your team.
It is.
And where people look forward to coming and serving and helping.
Yeah, God really does work. God really works through relationships, and ministry flows like anything else through relationships. And I think you're right there. And and the truth is, things do go kind of nuts around here, and it is an environment, a lot of times where we're running around, but we have a lot of fun. We have a lot of fun. Mm-hmm. Many of us have the gift of sarcasm, and so we use it freely when we're talking about equipment or, I don't know, probably not a gift. But all right, so getting together with your volunteers and you touch on something real important: vision, expressing vision. Yes. Very important. Why are we doing what we're doing? Because you're going to have bad days. You're going to have good days. You're going to have days when things don't go well. The wheels fall off. You've got to understand why you're doing what you're doing as a church. That needs to be articulated by the leadership team and by everybody, involved. They need to repeat the vision of our church. They need to know it and embrace it. It's so important for what you're doing, because it's not easy. I mean, doing what we do is sometimes a challenge, right?
It is, and there's a lot of other things that people can do instead of going to church, especially nowadays in our culture, Right. I mean, even there's sports, there's other activities that you're almost competing with,
Absolutely, you really are. So hopefully this has helped folks a little bit. Streaming, what we're talking about here today is not just streaming, although that's very important, because if you're watching a stream, all you're seeing is a screen. But even when people are walking into the physical building here, the experience for them, you need to work really hard at doing that. I visited churches and walked in and felt like an outsider. Because people just, I don't know, they just didn't care, they didn't know. But I've been to other churches where I was warmly greeted, and I was, the experience was good. I wasn't baking in the auditorium, or I wasn't freezing to death. I could hear what the pastor was trying to say. I could understand what he was trying to say. The music was, good. And so we're not just talking about a streaming experience, we're talking about an overall experience for people walking in your door. And again, remember, when somebody's new is walking in your door, they're not going to tolerate the goofy things that we tend to tolerate because we know everybody. And that's important because you're trying to reach people. There's a friend of mine out there that has what he calls a secret shopper ministry, where he actually will go to churches if they ask him to, and usually they pay him, to walk in and critique as an outsider, as a visitor. And people don't know who he is. He's just walking in like a new person, and he actually does critique the service. I think that's good to do once in a while. Yeah. And I would encourage you, maybe you can't afford to pay somebody to do that, but maybe you can find a friend that doesn't normally go to your church and say, hey, come to my church and just take some mental notes. What do you like? What do you don't like? Is it a good experience for you? Is it a very uncomfortable experience? Very important, wouldn't you say?
Oh, yes. I mean, look at your own home. I mean, most of us have a picture that's crooked on the wall, a stain on the carpet that we just don't see anymore. Fresh eyes always makes a difference, though. They see things right away that we just have forgotten about.
Absolutely. Okay. Well, we're out of time. Donna had a question. What do you feel is some good ways to get your online viewers more involved? And again, the virtual pastor question.
Yes.
Asking questions to the online audience, the senior pastor addressing the online crowd, and even the worship leaders. We're out of time. Sorry, Don, I'll cut you off. But Sharon, thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure. It's so fun to work with you.
Thank
and
you.
you do a great job around here. Folks, if we can help you in any way, support at StreamingChurch.tv is the email address, support StreamingChurch.tv. Check out our website, StreamingChurch.tv. I'm Phil Thompson. Sharon has been our guest here. And on behalf of Steve Lacey and the whole crew here, have yourself a great day. We'll catch you later.